Thank you, Leo. Good afternoon to
Good
our
afternoon.
PST guest, and thank you for the opportunity, VS Tech, to share with you all today. So my name's Mike Viray. I think we'll reverse the order a bit. Together, co-presenting with me is Arnold, who will also give you the IBM point of view on what we're doing in the area of data and infrastructure. So in the next 20 minutes, allow me to please share with you what IBM is doing in the areas of modernization, enterprise AI, and cyber resiliency. I think while there
Mike,
are three,
sorry, Mike.
yeah,
I think please maximize your
yeah,
presentation
I
deck.
saw that.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
so while there are three topics, I think they're all intertwined for us to have a sustainable differentiation in the new ways of working, right? So to put it into context, I think it's fair to say with the ever increasing dependency on um, remote working and using technologies in the cyber arena, the increase in collecting data is also tremendous. And the challenge for us IT professionals is how to understand that data and make sure we prevent the what we call data amnesia. We need to be able to have the capabilities and the correct platforms in place, whether that's on the cloud or on premise, to understand that data. And maybe I'll add more context to that. With what happened in the pandemic, I took this as a feedback from our manufacturing and semicon industry here in a local context, right? So the customer demand and the shift in loyalty is challenged when you shift from maybe a traditional way of engaging your customers to an online way of doing it. The personalization, hyper personalization still needs to exist, and those who can deliver today are the ones who are in a position to strategically grow and keep the customers. Another item is the personnel reduction or absenteeism. What that the consequence of that is actually we need to be able to do more work with less resources. Resources very much limited. Putting that in the context of IT or compute for that matter, where I come from, the power systems, right? The question is, does it still matter now in an API and service economy if I'm subscribing to cloud? Um, at the end of the day, I'm still paying per capacity or paying over a period of time, right? The amount of work that I'm able to achieve over a period of time, that still impacts my cost. So in my opinion, the infrastructure underneath, while you're probably masked from that because you don't really need to know that, the detail of that, you just sign a service level, it's still very important, the ability to do more work with less. Okay. The other item is increasing cost of raw materials. I think that's very straightforward. Increase in restrictions and increase delivery time cycles. I think all of us IT vendors are now challenged in terms of our delivery cycle times. If before it was this many days, now there are aspects that are not within our control. Um, so with that, the ever dependency on innovation and technology also increases, and also the surface of attack whenever we deal with data, especially now we're talking about a hybrid multi-cloud world, right? In our definition, what we're saying is your data may be coming from a service that you subscribe to from a public cloud provider, but you need to marry that to your users who are on site in your offices or maybe working remotely in their homes. That attack surface has tremendously increased, right? And we're actively talking to our customers now about strategies on how to address cyber resiliency. I don't think any customer, any user, any vendor can claim 100% cyber resiliency. But the good news is every deliberate effort that we work towards working on that makes a significant difference. So in our opinion, cyber resiliency is actually a combination of business continuity, your ability to run when an attack does happen, your ability to recover and restore and make a decision strategically to keep your businesses running. And then cybersecurity is your ability to protect your users, your systems, your networks, and your data. And we need to make sure that synergy is working harmoniously together in all aspects. Now let's talk about modernization. In the IBM world, maybe some of you are using our platforms. They've been around. For example, Unix. Maybe some people call it proprietary, right? Maybe yes, maybe not. That's changing, especially with IBM strategy to embrace Red Hat, open source, and OpenShift. AIX has been around for 35 years, even before any of us have been talking about cloud. But there's such a thing as in-place modernization, where we help our customers use the same platform that they've been using reliably with security and such, and have that run side by side with cloud native platforms in microservices. Same goes with the IBM I platform. At its core is RPG, very popular with banks, distribution and manufacturing industries. It's been around for 33 years and still very, very relevant today to power mission critical workloads. And again, you can run that with AI, with microservices. And as you can see here, I'm displaying it on the screen. We have field guides and we have workshops, we have garage sessions to help our customers do in-place modernization. The other route is rip and replace. Rip and replace means start again. It's expensive, it's risky, it's disruptive. In-place modernization means work with what you're doing now and complement that with innovations that are happening today, with tools that are available and tested and secure that are available for you today. So from left going to the right, and maybe we'll talk about examples of that later on. And we have various customers in various cross industries being able to leverage this, and we have very good stories. If you're interested in this, in the interest of time, please reach out to our friends in VST and we can talk about this. Okay. Okay. More on that stack, how we're making that possible in a open hybrid cloud architecture platform today. I spoke about our platform, Power Systems, and then we have the virtualization capabilities that are integrated with Power VM, and we have open source technologies that IBM has enhanced. So we have OpenStack that allows us to communicate virtual machines from our platform to maybe platforms that are available on the public cloud, whether that's an IBM cloud or other cloud providers or local managed service providers. We also have incorporated Linux, enterprise Linux. As an example, we have Red Hat and the Red Hat OpenShift going upwards in the layer. Under the covers is Kubernetes, which allows you to optimize microservices. You may be today doing projects that involve, for example, Postgres or MariaDB or Cassandra, open source databases that helps you reduce licensing costs, viable alternatives, and it does help you rapidly innovate and incorporate that with new DevOps methodologies, agile methodologies, so that you could launch services very quickly. These are all running very, very well optimized on this platform. How optimized? We can run as much as 4 times more container density than other common x86 platforms in the market today. Okay, and from IBM's point of view, we've also done packaging of our middleware and tools so that you can consume them as microservices. So this is one example substantiation of modernization that we're delivering today in the market. Okay. Going back to cybersecurity, these are just some news that I've taken off of the internet. One very recent one is the Colonial Pipeline hack just this May in North America. It was a ransomware attack. The system administrator received the message asking for money and the data supposedly is locked. Unfortunately, they at that time have have no quick response to that kind of cyber attack. So they decided to shut down pipeline operations in the east coast of North America from the Gold Coast all the way to New York. The result was a 2-week shortage of fuel, about 2.5 billion barrels of fuel that has been halted, and there were long lines. I think if you recall that, that was in the news. So these are the kinds of events that we are dealing with. And not to alarm anyone, it's not a question of if, but it is a question of when. When it does happen, are we all prepared to do it? The good news again is there's technology today from all the vendors that will probably be you'll be hearing from to help you complement that. So persistent security from core to cloud is the foundational design that we've incorporated in our platforms in IBM, specifically the power systems, uh, intentionally to protect your data, data at rest and data in motion, complement protecting the application workloads that you're running on top, and then help simplify the complexity of managing those layers, those components in your IT environment with integrated management. Okay. IBM is a big has a big practice in employing and implementing zero trust technology architecture. What zero trust by definition means is we have these key fundamental components that we take a look at, from network to data to infrastructure, where we're coming from, application, devices, and the users. Each component is a resource that needs to be protected. Each component is a controlled data plane that needs to be managed, and each of them are limited resources that need to be protected, right? So these are areas that we build technology solutions around, whether hardware or software, but we provide solutions to help reinforce security along these areas. Okay. Moving on, this last September, we introduced our latest platform. It's the Power 10 platform. So we have Power 9 and Power 10. Power 10 is our latest 7-nanometer, greater than 4-socket platform that we delivered in September. Again, the DNA is we provide persistent security, scalable, sustainable compute, starting from maybe 1 or 2 nodes, and then you can grow that. Industry-leading reliability, which is the heritage of our power systems. And then something that we're introducing is artificial intelligence at the point of data. And let me discuss that maybe later in the charts. So again, the modernization, the cyber resiliency, and then enterprise AI, we're able to capture that, encapsulate that, and optimize that within the platform. Security is one topic that, you know, our IT, when they talk about security, like for example, cryptography, implementing cryptography, some of our customers push back because the technologies that were available before had an associated overhead. So we're very sensitive to that, and coupled to that, the complexity that's also associated with managing cryptographic keys, how to manage passwords, etc. So we heard that and we listened, and by design, the technologies we introduced today are meant to help simplify those complexities. So we have comprehensive data protection to help in those struggles, answering the questions on what data should be protected, when, and who is responsible for encryption. Okay, so some train of thought, right? Some of our colleagues are saying, "Oh, this is not my area of expertise. I'll just outsource this and maybe subscribe to a cloud provider to do this." At the end of the day, the who part of that discussion is actually everybody, right? Everyone's accountable for the security of our customers' data. So while we probably have outsources, we still need to care how those are being managed and where they sit on. So here's more detail on how we're delivering that capability. With Power 10, we introduced the transparent memory encryption. So all data that's running on Power 10 are encrypted in memory. It's automatic, nothing to install, it runs there. Couple that with the system software for AIX Unix, we implement the logical volume encryption. Our IBM I has the auxiliary storage pool encryption as well for to protect data at rest. And then we have the file and data sets EFS technology for sensitive data tied to access control for in-transit and at rest data. And of course, as you go up to the layer, it complements protecting databases and applications. With Power 10, we also introduce 4 times more cryptographic engines in every core, right? With very, very minimal impact in overhead. So algorithms such as AES, SHA2, SHA3, industry supported, and we have trusted boot on the hardware level. Speaking of future proofing the platform, we also introduced quantum safe cryptography. So quantum computing is something that we can look forward to in the future. If you look at Power 10 and deploy your mission critical projects on Power 10, you're already future proofing your platform and you're ready for developments happening in quantum computing. Also, some of our software developing ecosystems are taking advantage of homomorphic software development. That's the ability to access data that's encrypted in memory. So it fully supports homomorphic encryption also today. So that's future proofing of that capability. Isolation is very important. There are built-in technologies within Power 10 to help protect against return-oriented programming attacks, which is something that is exploited by ransomware, right? That's the nature of ransomware, is exploit and run executable malicious code into your environment. So that's something that's detected by the system. Enhanced CPU isolation from service processors. There's isolation from different domains within the platform. And then secure and trusted boot for host guest LPARs with additional core root of trust hardening. Trusted boot means we define a trusted environment, trusted profile, and anything that is deviating from that, it gets flagged or it gets rejected, so that we helps complement in protecting that environment. Okay. Now let's talk about enterprise AI. So I've covered modernization, I've covered the cybersecurity, cyber resiliency. Now enterprise AI. If you were following our announcements when we announced Power 9, we spoke about democratizing artificial intelligence. When we introduced our Power 9 platforms with built-in GPUs or graphic processing interface, the goal there was to drastically reduce training cycle times for AI models. So we were at the point in 2018 of optimizing artificial intelligence models. Equivalent, the challenge was there wasn't enough data scientists, right? So we introduced tools to help also simplify that. Like for computer vision, there was IBM Power AI at that time. Now we're in a stage that all those training models, whether you've trained that on the Power platform or you train that on the cloud through hyperscalers or through x86, all those models that are complying to open neural network exchange, you can infuse them into your operations. This is where it becomes powerful. All those training models are now, you're now able to infuse that into your day-to-day business operations, so that your knowledge workers will have access to data and they have access to artificial intelligence to help them make sound decisions, right? And where that performance is measured is how you can do inferencing very, very quickly. So Power 10 has been built to support AI inferencing. So we're now in the inferencing part. So inferencing means scoring the answer from the AI model. So for example, an analogy is maybe if it was a computer vision use case, if I were to, if the machine was to derive an answer to a picture of a nurse wearing white holding a bottle of milk, is that a mother or is that a nurse? Now with the data in the background, that inferencing model will score that image and say this is actually, because of the time, the location, etc., this is actually a nurse. So maybe that's an oversimplistic discussion, but the point here is we're putting AI inferencing at the point of data. What that means is the power systems has been historically the choice, a platform of choice for running your system of records. You're running your databases, you're running your unstructured data on the platform. So we're putting the same AI capability on that same platform. What that gives you is the benefit of low data gravity, okay, and the performance of low latency, accessing system of records where your AI inferencing resides, okay. Plus, we also help make this more achievable. We will not be dependent on GPUs anymore. IBM introduced an inferencing engine. It's called the Matrix Math Accelerator, built in Power 10. We have 4 Matrix Math Accelerator engines per core. It supports XBlast, PyTorch, Caffe, all the popular platforms for AI, and it provides 5 times faster AI inferencing performance as compared to our previous generation Power 9. Right, so look into this space. We'll be very active in this, helping our industries infuse AI in operations. Now let's talk about a security solution on software. So earlier I spoke about cryptography and trusted boot on hardware. Those are hardware solutions. We've also introduced and incorporated software security solutions that are built specifically for this platform and highly virtualized environments. This has been around. It's called Power Security and Compliance. The key thing that we'd like you all to understand is there's cost associated to security and compliance to external or internal auditors. More and more, if you're in a highly regulated industry, for example, banks, right? If you're handling personal information of customers and you have a payment gateway using Visa or MasterCard, most likely you will be required to comply to payment card industry data security standards. And right now, with the version 3, you need the multi-factor authentication. So these tools, these capabilities are built into this Power Security and Compliance, which is bundled and integrated in the Power platform. Whether you get AIX Unix or IBM I, or if you'd like to run Linux on Power, you can take advantage of these tools to help simplify and automate compliance and security for your environments. And we also have an ecosystem, a partner ecosystem that also provides security for microservices. So it's a very comprehensive approach to handle various environments on the same platform. So we do encourage you to mix workloads on the platform. We're very big on consolidation so that you can drive higher levels of utilization on that platform. Winding down to my last 2 charts, I spoke about doing more work with less, and that is a very that has been very consistent in the way we are positioning this platform. It's a platform for consolidation. This is from an actual customer scenario where 126 Intel Oracle database servers have been consolidated to 3 Power 9 servers or just 2 Power 10 servers because of the ability to do more throughput per core. We have 8 threads per core as compared to 2 threads per core on x86. How does that translate to your total cost of ownership? Well, obviously the footprint drastically reduces. Energy consumption goes down by a ratio of up to 3x or even 5x reduction. I think we're one of the countries with the highest rates of electricity, right? So I think our facilities management teams will be very happy with this type of achievement. In terms of licensing, we're able to reduce that about 2.7 times less cores on Power 9, on about 3.3 times less cores on Power 10. So it drastically reduces licensing cost on database and also maintenance. To wrap up, IBM is engineered for agility, modernization with frictionless hybrid cloud experience. It helps you to respond faster to business demands, protect data from core to cloud, streamline insights and automation, and maximize availability and reliability. So with that, let's turn it over to our strategies for data and storage. And let me call my colleague, Arnold. Arnold, over to you.
So for the next 20 minutes, I'll be covering technology enablers on the storage platform to protect or to help you and your enterprise improve and progress your cyber resiliency posture. Okay, so it's a technology enabler, right? So I'll say this now, and you'll probably hear from me say it again in the next few slides, that cyber resiliency is only one part technology, right? The other parts are people and processes. So I'll be talking more about this in the next few slides. So I think Mike has shared a catastrophic disaster, right, in US earlier in his presentation. But let me take it closer to home, right? So just sharing an example where here in the Philippines, in Manila, my brother-in-law, who has a very small aluminum workshop, right, was suffered an attack. So his employee plugged in an infected USB drive into their desktop, and all their data was encrypted, right? So it's a malware attack, and it's actually a ransomware, right? So after a few minutes, so they realized that the desktops were freezing, right? And this person, luckily, it was just a small shop. The desktops are just beside each other, and the network switch was in the room. So he just pulled the plug of the network switch. Okay, but essentially, 5 desktops were frozen, and their file server, they have a small Synology box, was also encrypted. So luckily, they have a backup, right? So after a few minutes, they received an email asking for $1,000, right? So they're just saying that it's everywhere, right? So Mike was saying it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when, right? So it's something very close to home, right? Very close to us, and we always have to be vigilant on this on our policies, right? So just imagine it's just a USB key plugged into a desktop, and almost about 500 gigabytes of data was encrypted. So they just the perpetrators were asking for $1,000, right? But they did not pay, so they just recovered. So the World Economic Forum actually rates cyber crimes as one of the top 5 threats, right, in the world today, right? And in a matter of statistics, right, 1 in 4 companies will suffer an attack in the next 2 years, right? So again, we definitely have to improve our cybersecurity posture from now on, right? So I guess looking at technology enablers from a storage perspective, right? There are many forms, right? I think an example of a natural cyber resilient platform would be tapes, right? Why? Because tapes are natural air gaps. The moment you write data to tapes, data is offline, and it's a cartridge, right? So it's not anywhere near accessible to any network. Okay. Now, looking at cyber resilience or data resilience, these are some of the items that we need to ask ourselves, right? So, is our primary storage resilient? Does it have data resiliency features, right? I'll talk more about that in a while. Do we have copies of our data that are isolated, right? Air gap, okay? Nowhere near any network connection, right? And are these copies immutable, right? It's air gap, and can it be changed or not, right? It has to be unalterable or immutable, right? And of course, if something happens, are we able to discover, or are we able to browse through our catalog and recover fast, from an attack, right? And last but not the least, can we recover fast, right? So I guess these questions pertain to primary storage devices or primary storage systems that are in our data center to help us recover fast, right? So IBM would want to help you have that knee-jerk reaction to recover from an attack, right? If something happens, data starts being encrypted in our enterprise. Oops, let's pause. Let's try and investigate and recover. So this is the capability we would like to provide, right? I mentioned this earlier. Cyber resiliency is only one part technology, right? 40% technology, 60% people and processes, right? And it's it always cuts across the different parts of our enterprise, right? So it cannot only be in the data center. It has to be part of our policies. There's crisis management. There's network segmentation, data security, incident response, right? Of course, identity and access management. All this will play a part, right? And I from a server perspective, end to end, right? Software, server, storage, network, this has to play a part. Now, the key point that I'd like to say is the more preparation we do, the more drills we do, the faster we can recover from an attack. Okay. Now, the next few slides will talk about primary storage solutions that can help you recover fast. Okay. Now, let's look into cyber resilient primary storage architecture. So, what are the characteristics? Some of these may be familiar to you already, right? So, I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have already been implementing or deploying multi-site mirroring, right? Data replication from site to site, primary to DR site, or maybe to a tertiary site, right? Or some of you may already have an active environment. And I'm very sure a lot of you are also looking at encryption. Okay. But the next few slides, I'll be talking about these characteristics and also a new feature that can be found on an IBM storage platform, which is what we call as the Flash Systems platform, which ranges from enterprise up to high-end enterprise solutions. So essentially, this is a very economical solution. Some of you may already be using it. And it would be easy to implement an air gap solution or a cyber resiliency protection against cyber attacks on these platforms. Now, let me take you through some of the characteristics in the next few minutes. So, first and foremost, the Flash Systems line of products has a common firmware. We call it the Spectrum Virtualized. So, Spectrum Virtualized firmware cuts across the entire family or the entire platform of the Flash Systems lines of products. And one of the key feature of Flash Systems or Spectrum Virtualized is the ability to virtualize other branded storage servers. Okay, so once we virtualize other branded storage servers, we can actually simplify, right? Simplify the architecture, simplify the management, thereby providing a simplified or consistent operations across our enterprise, be it on-prem or in the cloud. Okay, so from a replication perspective, the Flash Systems line of products or this Spectrum Virtualized solution is able to provide mirroring solutions, synchronous or asynchronous. One key point that I'd like to say is the asynchronous feature of this platform uses one accelerator technology already. So it's inclusive. So it's very, very efficient in terms of bandwidth or bandwidth subscriptions. Okay, so that's the first one. Second feature of a data resilient primary storage server is the ability to have an active-active solution. So what do I mean by active-active? We have two sites. We have two data centers behaving as one, right? Serving our workloads as one entire unit. So here we leverage the use of data replication technology, right? And we call it a stretch cluster. We commonly call it as hyperswap. So it deploys an active-active environment for our workloads across two sites. Okay. Another feature of a data resilient storage platform is the capability to provide enhanced availability. Right. So one of the solutions in this platform is what we call as the SAN volume controller. And this is our appliance that can virtualize storage devices, right? And we can actually deploy multiple stretch clusters and deploy replication over many sites, actually up to 5 and even up to the cloud. So essentially, data resiliency is a native capability of this platform. Okay. Next is encryption. So encryption, let me stay here for about 2 to 3 minutes. So encryption has been a common defense against data theft, right? But one key component of implementing encryption is the management of the encryption keys, right? So with this platform, it's very easy to manage the keys. In fact, there's a USB drive key encryption solution as an option, or maybe you already have a Gemalto solution, or we can also deploy as a software, which we call IBM Security Guard Zoom key lifecycle manager to manage the key. So it's very easy. The easiest one is the USB drive, right? Key encryption management. Now, just imagine what I've mentioned earlier. So we are able to virtualize different storage servers. We can actually deploy a consistent architecture of encryption, right? We can encrypt the data, whether it's a native or it's built-in drives or flash drives of this storage platform, or it can be the virtualized capacities from the other storage servers. Okay. On top of that, we also have a solution, or we have an option which we call as the FlashCore module. So FlashCore module is an IBM solution, or it's an IBM only flash drive that's a NVMe interface that can perform encryption and compression without any performance impact. So putting it all together, we are simplifying the environment. We're simplifying our encryption. We are simplifying the replication capabilities of your enterprise. Okay. Now, let me talk about this new feature. So this is a new feature that deploys an air gap solution to our data copies. So we call this safeguarded copy. Okay. So what is safeguarded copy? Safeguarded copy has 4 key characteristics. Okay. First is that it creates an immutable copy of your data. Okay. So it's a snapshot, but immutable. Second, it's isolated. It's an air gap copy. There's no way to alter the data on these safeguarded copies. Okay. Third is that it deploys separation of duties, right? So essentially, as I mentioned, it's not just technology. We have the separation of duties to integrate with your security policies as an implementation of this solution. And last but not the least, of course, when we're dealing with snapshots, we would want to have an automated solution, right? So there's the automation portion that can help automate the creation and its expiry of these snapshots. Now, let me talk about the separation of duties. Okay, so separation of duties, there are many roles that we can deploy in the Flash Systems line of products in Spectrum Virtualize. But essentially, these are the 3 main roles that we can, I can give as an example. So the first one is super user. Of course, super user can do anything, which we can deactivate, right? So after configuration, you can tell us, IBM, please deactivate the super user account. Okay, we'd want to use the security administrator. So the security admin can configure and can remove safeguarded copies. So only he has the power, aside from the super user, to delete safeguarded copies. Aside from him, or aside from them, there are no other roles who can delete safeguarded copies. Now, the storage administrator can create safeguarded copy policies, right? But the administrator cannot delete, okay? Cannot revise or delete any safeguarded copies. Okay. Now, I think a picture paints 1,000 words. Just in a nutshell, these boxes, the production system, the safeguarded backup location, the gray box in the middle, and the cyber vault system on the right side. These are all within that Flash Systems storage server. It's within your production server. Okay. Now, the proactive monitoring box is an integration with our security software called QRadar, right? So it's an SIEM solution that can be integrated into this solution. So let me show you. So as an example, let's say we are taking snapshot safeguarded copies every 3 hours, okay, in our enterprise. And after 6 p.m., okay, an attack happens. Okay, after when the attack happens, what QRadar can do? Okay, QRadar can actually trigger an off-cycle safeguarded copy. Okay, but aside from that, QRadar, the anomaly detection capability of QRadar can help us already isolate, right? Can help us reduce the recovery cycles. So what do I mean by this? We can now eliminate the 6 p.m. copy, right? So probably it detected some anomalous behavior after maybe about 5 p.m. So it will let us know, okay, maybe let's start recovery from the 3 p.m. snapshot or safeguarded copy. So what we do, okay, I did mention this is the gray box is an isolated or an air gap solution, so we cannot alter that. So the only way is to mount it to a recovery volume, or what we call as a cyber vault system, right? So once we mount it, let's say the first safeguarded copy 4, it's we find it to still be corrupted. Then we recover safeguarded copy 3, maybe it's still corrupted, right? And up to the point where we get a good copy. Okay. Now, we can have many copies in this production system, up to 15,000 plus, right? So it's not about the copies, it's about the automation, it's about the anomaly detection, right? It's about the recoverability, that knee-jerk reaction. It's very fast, right? We're able to recover very fast. One thing I'd like to add is that the safeguarded copy, the safeguarded copies and the recovery target copies, these are all space efficient. So we are only looking at deltas of our data. Okay. Now, what are the use cases? Okay. So let me just take you through the use cases. Of course, we need to incorporate this into our operation. So one of the use cases is data validation, right? We would want to validate our data operationally, whether it's daily or maybe every 12 hours, right? Or maybe forensic. If something happens, hey, let's look into the data. Okay, let's look where the data hit. So we are able to investigate, okay, using these safeguarded copies. Now, recovering from an attack, it can be surgical, meaning we only take the affected or infected data and recover it back to production. Or maybe there was a catastrophic attack, we need to recover the entire thing, entire volume. And last but not the least, maybe we would want to have an offline backup, right? We can also use this as a backup facility to create our offsite backup data copies. Now, again, this is about the primary storage server, but IBM can provide many other solutions, right? Many other solutions that can provide that end-to-end cyber resilient enterprise, right? And I think the key points are copy separation, right? And of course, immutability, right? And limited access to the data, right? And looking at cyber resiliency or recovering from a cyber attack, we can actually have many options, right? Safeguarded copy can help you recover very fast, right? But we can also recover from our backup and recovery facilities, right? Now, one key solution that we are able to provide, we call it Spectrum Protect Plus. It's our backup facility for virtual machines. And it actually helps create an isolated backup facility, right, of our VMs. In fact, it's an isolated backup facility, but with a new way of approaching this solution. And that is we can actually spin up the VMs on this backup facility. Some other some of our customers actually use this backup facility as their development environment as well. Okay, so if there's an attack, we can easily restore that VM to the production environment, or maybe just run it on this backup facility. Okay. Last but not the least, there's a resurgence on tape usage. I know a lot of maybe the industry has focused on other backup and recovery solutions, but tapes has actually gained a lot of traction in the past 3 years, mainly because there are many other use cases which tape can provide. And I did mention that tapes are natural air gaps, right? So on top of this, tapes are also used for long-term archive and retention solutions that can help really scale down the operational costs of the enterprise in terms of long-term archive retention. Okay, that was my last slide. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.